Today we have Bert Muller, who left America to fulfill his Indian dream and built a 200 crore desi Bangalore-based Mexican joint. The story of California Burrito is a unique one because Bert started as a music composer but later noticed the similarities between Mexican and Indian cuisine and realized the potential of starting a healthy quick service restaurant back in 2011. Cut to 2024, California Burrito has 80 plus outlets and sells 2,400 burritos in a single day. In this episode, we dive deep into 3 core insights into how Bert built his mega QSR brand.
I was actually a music student. So now I'm in business, but I studied music in college. That led me to then spend most of my young life studying music and thinking that I was going to become a film music composer. But then gradually I started thinking, do I want to do other things? I was interested in food. I remember opening a restaurant in our house when I was probably 6
years
kind of a fake restaurant. But, was on this path of doing music. But after coming to India, then decided to pivot and business was the approach. After coming to India, I really knew I wanted to spend a good chunk of my life in India. That I had this incredible experience here where I felt like my mind almost got opened up in ways that you couldn't in the US, given it's so structured. I respected the people who were doing business. They were CEOs of Red Lobster and Bigelow Teas, which is a massive tea company in the US. So these were people who were kind of mentors to me.
So why did you come to India? Like, what was the first trip here and how did it look like?
Most of the people in my college were going to Italy or Spain. And I thought, I want something that's totally different than the US. The US is so structured. I've been in this kind of bubble for my life. What else is out there? And so that thought process led me to India. There were only 2 study abroad programs in India. One was in Hyderabad, one was in Jaipur. And the Jaipur one was more kind of aligned with my timings. So went for the Jaipur study abroad.
See, it's a tough call to actually say that, hey, I'm going to serve Mexican food here in a country which is probably just learning about burgers and pizzas. How did you take a call on a cuisine when you started California Burrito?
I had always loved this restaurant format. I'd always loved Mexican food as well. I think Indian and Mexican were my 2 favorite cuisines growing up. I've always been a health conscious person. I'm not a fan of fast food, but this restaurant format was somewhere you get the food fast, but it's customized for your health. And so I love this format. I felt Indians would love this too. And as soon as I got back from India, whenever I would go into a Mexican fast food or fast casual restaurant, I would notice a lot of Indians. Mm-hmm. And it just made me kind of, have more confidence that this would be something that may work well.
Tell me more about the starting days of California Burrito, right? You were in India. It was in 2012 and, you just started out and you just got your company registered. So how was the 0 to 1 journey looking like at that time? And what were the challenges that you went through?
I had started this business with 2 co-founders, both of whom were people I'd known since I was a child. One of the co-founders was an actor, and he had been reasonably successful in his acting career at that time. And so when we moved to India, he just came for a month and then went back to do his acting work. My other co-founder had come out, and so we were really the ones who were here, and that's Zerodha. It was 10 months to get the first restaurant open. And that was a big struggle. It was a struggle to find the ingredients. We didn't, we weren't sure if all the ingredients were here, and many of them weren't. It was a struggle to get real estate. We were 22 at that time. There was actually a lot of malls coming up at that time. Phoenix Mall was getting up. Orion Mall in Bangalore was coming up. We tried to get into the Orion Mall at the beginning, and we did a food tasting with their chief leasing officer. And after that, wasn't going forward. But eventually we did find the property at Embassy Golf Links, and that was a great piece of real estate, and they gave us a chance. But we did some catering events. The first one went terribly. We got better at it as time went by, of course. While we didn't ever think that we wouldn't be able to do it, it was an intensely frustrating period of time. And actually, my co-founder Zerodha left about a month before the first restaurant opened. He was just so fed up with the struggle of it. Now he came back a year later, but as soon as we opened, it did phenomenally. And I was checking, it was our first day of sale, we did almost 600 transactions and it was 85,000 rupees, which today the equivalent would be almost 1.7 lakhs. So all that frustration then led to a successful outcome, thankfully.
Now, before we get into that, what's super interesting is that a GrowthX capstone team literally built a growth strategy for Blue Tokai that was so realistic that they presented it to the entire startup ecosystem at the GrowthX demo day last year. This strategy runs literally into hundreds of pages. It's super in-depth, but because we love you, we are giving away a small portion of this exclusive document to our YouTube fam. In it, you'll find insights about Blue Tokai's users, in-depth market research, the industry, and the user insight behind their massive growth. The link to access it is in the comments, and it's free, by the way, so happy learning.
So when you started, right, what were the market gaps, right, that you found?
I think that there was a couple, I don't know if we'd call it a trend, but I think there's generally been a trend of people moving from probably more multi-cuisine formats to specialist formats. These are long-term trends. And then also unorganized to organized. I would say these were definitely two long-term trends on food in India that I see, and we were a part of that. The second thing I would say is that generally back then, IT parks were not, I would say they didn't have the top quality of operators in them, but there was good business. And so we were able to fill a cuisine gap in a food court that also wasn't catered to by great players. So I think those were things that benefited us.
So now you have crossed 200 crores in revenue, right? So tell us everything that you've cracked as a company and everything that has worked for you guys.
I think number one, Indians love fresh food. I think they're, in a ways, in the US, they're eating all processed food that sits in somewhere for a long period of time. Indians get the freshest food that I've ever seen. So Indians love fresh food, and we sell fresh food. Everything in our stores is cooked at the store, which is a challenge for consistency. But, maybe people will forgive one inconsistent experience, provided they're getting, high quality, fresh experiences the rest of the time. Health is another long-term trend where people are more, especially post-COVID, are more concerned about what they consume. Being able to customize, I think we're able to provide a meal that is not so foreign, but then also you can add extra vegetables, you can add extra protein, and people really like being able to customize. I think it's important to have a great delivery program and a great dine-in program. So we were mainly dine-in pre-pandemic. And then, of course, pandemic became 100% delivery almost. And now it's a healthy split. But I think having a product that delivers reasonably well has also benefited us. So, burritos deliver well, rice bowls deliver well.
How does running a QSR store look like? Let's say, how does the economics work? Let's say you have 100 rupees of capital. So where does the split goes when you talk about marketing, raw materials, cost of goods sold, etc.? So
we'll say 30% COGS, 15% labor, 15% rent, maybe 5% utilities. Marketing is probably will be anywhere between 2 to 5%. So we've got 5% admin costs. There'll be admin costs, and maybe this all winds up another 5%. So I think at the end of the day, if you're making above 15% at a store level, you're doing well. If you're making below 10% at a store level, it's okay, not great.
What do you think are the major product insights that you are trying to incorporate in California Burrito right now, and something that you're seeing right now?
I think the major insight is just that we want to deliver the experience you'd get if you went and had this in the US or Mexico. And that is tricky, actually, because some of those things have very high costs to deliver, and some of those things don't exist in India. Trying to deliver, we say, real Mexican flavors is the key. That's how we basically got involved in farming. We had a situation where we imported 500 Hass avocado trees. We planted them in a great place with namdaris. And then elephants came and killed 80 of the trees got killed. Now, of course, we're grafting more, and we're hoping we can figure out how to grow these in the north as well. Now we did tomatillos. We're doing beans. We just hired an agronomist. It's leading from that thought, which is that if we want to do this really well, we need to look to the people who've perfected this already.
So right now, just talk more about, you are right now in how many cities, and what's your plan? What are you targeting more in terms of expansion and, more city penetration?
So we're in 4 cities right now. What we've done is we've gone through and mapped out all of the areas we want to open in these 4 cities. That'll get us to about 150 stores. So we're at 85 today.
So just tell us more about how Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, all these cities are different to each other, and what are the nuances that are different, in terms of customer behavior that you observed?
Each city does have its own nuances, and I think it has more to do with either real estate that we choose or the prevalence of Taco Bell. So in the north, Taco Bell had built the Mexican category. And so when people came into our stores at the beginning, they always would come in for tacos. Because somewhere in their mind, if I go to Mexico, I have a taco. So that was a kind of a learning for us, is that we saw just huge taco, first visits buying tacos in Delhi. Now, Hyderabad, we'd open a bunch of mall stores to start with. Malls are different. People don't really go to a mall to visit your restaurant. And they're also maybe buying more snacks. It's more of an indulgent occasion. And so the product mixes started looking different than when we did dine-in stores in Hyderabad, which I think was because people associated the brand with whatever they had on that mall visit. So I think, if you're thinking about a market, it may have less to do with the individual taste preferences or the culture preferences, but more with either your positioning from a real estate perspective, an occasion perspective, or whoever has then come before you in what's perceived as your category.
What should be an ideal place to start off, right? For example, you talked about malls a lot. You talked about other real estate locations. Let's say if there's any new company that is starting out, right? What location should they go after in terms of, capital, ease of capital, and also in terms of having the possibility to create a brand for themselves?
If we're opening in a new city, we found that mall is a good way to go. But that being said, I think that also has to do with the fact that people know the brand. If I was, opening today and I had an ambition of having a delivery business, I would probably open a standalone store. It's riskier from, if you make mistakes on day one, people may not come back. So the beauty of a mall and a tech park is that even if you screw up the first two months, there's only so many options. So people will come back. So if you're confident in your product, standalone makes more money. There's no variable rent. You can do much easier delivery. The problem in a mall is that, deliveries take longer. The guy has to go through security. He has to park. It adds at least 10 minutes to a delivery, which then you get deprioritized in the algorithm. So, the Swiggy and Zomato want to do as many deliveries per delivery guy as possible. So if you're delivering 10 minutes later, you'll get less preference in the algorithm.
So right now, what is the product mix for you?
So rice bowls sell more than burritos, but burritos, tacos, and rice bowls would make up 75% of our business. Beverage would be, 5%. And then the rest is some snacks and nachos, salads. Salads are not a huge piece.
Anyone who's starting, what are the criteria? What are the top 5 things that they should absolutely nail when it comes to starting out a store?
The food has to be good. I think there has to be good value. Magna Foods, there's tremendous value. They're giving a good amount of rice and a good amount of chicken. It's not the cheapest biryani, but if you think of the amount of the quality you're getting, the grams of food you're getting, and then the price you're paying, it's like right. It should be clear on what you stand for. It can't be that you don't want to confuse people with what your menu is. Your category should be clear, and of course, then our pricing. We need to make sure we're making money on the food. Maybe some restaurateurs don't have great financial acumen, and so they don't cost out things in a very accurate way. And then if you're online, you're going to have to factor that in. You're probably going to have to price higher than you would in your store.
I want to understand what have been the major learnings and any recommendation or any frameworks for any founder who is listening to this and who is trying to start out anything.
At the end of the day, the customer is the most important person in the business. I think for us, we were always rather frugal, and that helped save the business from ever running into a problem with cash. COVID, we did almost run into problems with cash. But prior to that, never really ran into trouble with cash because we were careful with it.
See, California Burrito has a very cult-like following, right? People love it too much. What have you cracked as a brand?
Well, I think first and foremost, the food is good. That's an ongoing journey. Every level, we try to keep in mind what customers are telling us. We get hundreds of reviews per day. I read most of them. I read all the dine-in reviews. We've generally done a reasonably good job on real estate. Well, that's more of a cost factor. If we divided the amount of views you get on a property over the cost, it's almost like a CPM on marketing. We've done a reasonably good job on that. We've always tried to leave value on the table for the customer. So we're very apprehensive about hiking prices. We had just hiked prices last month because vegetable costs went way too high. But we generally leave value on the table we always have left value on the table for the customer in terms of pricing. And, I think for people like us who are gym going and, we want to be healthy, it's super easy to eat healthy. So I think that's fantastic, to have an option that's, pretty regularly available, that's reasonably priced, it tastes good, and it's healthy. I think that's what I want. That's what I'll make.
So let's zoom out and let's talk about one of the very difficult phases that you had in your business, which was COVID. How was that phase for you as a founder?
In the month before COVID, I think we'd done 4 CR of revenue. And then immediately that went down to some 25 lakhs. So you're almost on a war footing. Death is upon you, and how do you survive? They say there's a peacetime leader and a wartime leader. In COVID, you have to become the wartime leader. We had to figure out how to get our sales back. We spent money on marketing, and we kept improving the product. I think the pandemic forced us to take decisions to survive, and those were good decisions. And some of that culture has remained coming out of COVID on being more aggressive, taking more risks. I think also it helps being a single founder in a way. Decision making goes much faster. Might be wrong decisions, but it's actions happen. And with actions, then learning happens. So I think that was another thing, frankly, that actually helped us go faster.